Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everyone. This is your host of Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour, and we are live. We're coming on a little bit later tonight, but we have our special guest in who's a regular on our show, and we're going to talk about part two of the failure of the mental health system. And we're going to be discussing the Brendan Depa. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. We're going to discuss his case over in Florida as an example of part two, because we talked about it a couple of weeks ago on our show. And for those of you who may not have seen the show before, we are live on Facebook. I'm Louise Hicks, the host of this podcast, and I'm with my special guest, Minister Fred Shaw. And my YouTube channel is aimed, AIMED, the number two, Purpose Radio. That's Aimed to Purpose Radio. And go to my channel and subscribe. You will be on the channel when you're watching this show, because I upload these videos to my YouTube channel every week when we do the show. And we come on at various times. Usually I give a heads up, but we're running a little bit behind. So I figure since it's going to be on YouTube, we'll just go ahead and start the show, and we will jump right into it and talk about this public health educational system. First of all, the public health, not mental health, I should say, which is part of public health too. Mental health, all of it goes hand in hand. But we're going to talk about mental health and the public school system and how this impacts mentally challenged students. And I chose this particular subject to talk about Brendan's case over in Florida, where he attacked a teacher's aide, attacked a teacher's aide, and he is on the autism spectrum syndrome, which there are different levels, and some people just haven't done any due diligence. They don't understand, and we'll get more into that. But I want to go ahead and introduce Fred and let him tell you a little bit about himself for those of you who may not have seen the show before. And thank you all for joining and supporting. And please go to my YouTube channel, just share and give it a thumbs up and subscribe, because we need to get this information out to others so that we can help, particularly Black people. The reason I started this show, because we know of all the ethnicities, we in America as Black people are the most impacted in this country due to slavery. And I just call it for what it is. So go ahead, Minister Shaw, and tell us a little bit about yourself for those who may not have seen the show before.
Well, I'm Reverend Frederick Shaw. I'm the president of the Inglewood South Bay NAACP here in California. I'm also on the California board over the Children's Task Force. I'm the international spokesperson and director of public affairs for the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, which is a mental health watchdog organization that exposes psychiatric abuse, such as the psychiatric drugging of children, without explaining the difficulties and the side effects of these drugs, and electroshock therapy, which is being done on children from 0 to 5 years of age and pregnant women, which means that babies are literally being electroshocked before they're even born.
Which is sad. And that's the other reason I chose this subject. And we usually talk about mental health a lot on this show, because counseling, and I know it's so important, particularly for our people, because of slavery. And all this stuff stems back. I'm not saying that we have to stay stuck there, by no means, no, because we have to take accountability. We have to take responsibility for elevating ourselves, because we know that Black people did build this country. We built it upon our ancestors back, and we know within this country, so far, what we've seen has been a disgrace. Everybody is getting our money, our tax dollars, except us. They won't even, the Biden administration won't even discuss reparations, but they're taking all of our dollars, they're giving it to the migrants. And we're going to do a show about that too, eventually, when I get my panel together. I want to do a show about since this election is coming around, because all of this goes hand in hand with the mental health system and how it has failed us. Now, let me give you a little background for those of you who may not be familiar with Brendan's case. His name is Brendan, Brendan, last name Depa, and I don't know whether we pronounce it Depa or Depa. However, that is his last name. He is a boy over in Florida that was 17 years old, recently turning 18, that is on the spectrum, the autism spectrum syndrome. And he has some other illnesses, as medical conditions, I should say, as well, from what I have read. And he's out of the state of Florida. When he attacked this teacher's aide, it had to do with some type of Nintendo, however you pronounce that one too, game that he had in the classroom. And it has been alleged that he is on an IEP program, which is for individual educational plan for students like himself who have challenges. However, mainstream media and mainstream and people in general, they don't do any due diligence. A lot of them just look at this uh, boy as a regular, ordinary person when he's not. And I'm going to share with you some other information too that we're going to talk about that is related to Brendan. And his mother had put out some information about him. Her name is Leanne, and she had put out some information about him on this news. I guess you could call it a newspaper, local paper called flaglerlive.com over in Florida as well. And as many of you may know, Governor Santos in Florida is somebody that appears to me to be totally a racist when it comes to Black people. He feels that Black people learn skills from slavery, and where he got that notion from, I don't know. How can you be beaten with the whips, castrated, raped, and murdered and all of that? However, you can get skills. So to me, this man, your governor, whoever you are in Florida, if you happen to be listening to this podcast, that governor seems and appears to be mentally ill himself. And that's my perspective. And hopefully the so-called freedom of speech will allow me to say that based on all of the stuff that he said. And unfortunately, Brendan is in the state of Florida where he attacked this teacher's aide, and they both are victims from my perspective. And based on this Flagler, where they are located, Flagler County, it appears, I believe that's the county in Florida. It appears from the comments when the mother put the story out and gave her perspective about her son, and he was adopted as an infant, by the way. I don't know the story on his adoption and all of that. It's just alleged that he was adopted by this white family. And based on what I read of her story, she has put a lot of information out where she has done everything she can to help her son. However, and Minister Shaw is going to shed some light on this. He's been given all kind of drugs and just a whole slew of what I would say from my perspective of having a son myself who had cancer at 14 and was put on psychotropic drugs, which did him more harm than good from my perspective. And it's just a nightmare. And that's why I took an interest, a special interest in this particular case, because I can say I'm walking in Leanne's shoes to a certain extent. Not that my son is autistic, however, because of the cancer, he suffered depression. He was only 14, and drug addiction, And I have been fighting for him for over 25 years, and I'm 72 now, and this started when I was in my 40s and he was 14. So I can walk in her shoes to a certain extent because I know what it's like to have a mentally challenged child with medical conditions as well. And that's what it appears to be here. And these people over in Florida appear, from what I have read, to be railroading this boy because of what he did. And what he did, by no means attacking this teacher's aide, would I condone anything like that. But I just think it's cruel for this uh, injustice system to be trying this boy as a man. And they're saying all kind of ugly things about him now. They're, oh, that Hope student. If you all remember, some of you may remember, they had this television series called The Hulk, where this big green, I think he was green giant man. I used to watch it sometimes. He would turn into this very strong, strong, strong person, and he could just beat up the whole universe, let them tell it. And it's ironic how they are depicting this boy who needed help that he didn't get because the system failed him as a Hulk and this. And most of the comments that I read on this Fragler Live .com, which is a news station, if I'm not mistaken, over in Florida, in Flagler County. I believe that's a county over there. And I have to read to you quickly a comment by one person. And I had to make a comment on her statement. And let me read it right quickly. Most of the comments I read were positive. I have to say that on this Flagler, and it's Flagler live.com. And this is from someone named Janelle, Jannil. And what she said to me leads me to believe that she does not understand what it is to have uh, to be autistic and autistic spectrum, because there are different levels and different severity of it. So what she said is Brendan Depa, a 17-year-old severely autistic student, attacked his paraprofessional, Joan Naydich, a Matanzas High School, in February, and faces a first-degree felony charge as an adult. His mother, Leanne Depa, speaks for the first time, detailing Brendan's personal and medical history and his almost intractable challenges that predated the horrific incident. He could have killed a human being, and half of these people think he should be able to roam free for the next person who does something he doesn't like. No, this mother is absolutely disgraceful for publicly shaming the teacher and trying to manipulate proceedings. He should be put into jail because he is simply not safe. That's why jails exist, to keep people who are a danger to society away from vulnerable people. As a mom to an autistic kid, I find this disgusting. So in listening to Janelle's comment, and I happen to choose this comment because it was put on after I made a comment, and I'm not going to read my comment, but I am going to read my response to you to Janelle's comment. And if you want to see what all these comments are on this case, you can go to this Flagler, Flagler, as F is in Frank, Lagler live.com. And you can see these various comments from different people. And like I said, most of them were compassionate. And based on what she said, nobody really said he should be roaming around in the streets. Most of the people on there that I read their comments were feeling that he needs help. And he's a victim and she's a victim. These are the comments that I read. But this is my comment to her quickly. I said, Janelle, I find it disturbing that you haven't lived in Mrs. Depa's shoes, yet you judge her for loving her autism spectrum son, who is also a victim. It is certainly not right what happened to the teacher's aide, and she too is a victim of this broken mental health prison system. Are you educated on the different kinds of autism spectrum disorders based on their severity? Are you educated on what some psychotropic drugs can do to the brain and the chemical imbalances and side effects? Based on your harsh comments, it appears you need to do some due diligence and educate yourself, because this boy is definitely a victim as well. No, he does not belong in prison because the system failed him and the teacher's aide. He doesn't deserve to be tried as an adult in this injustice system either. This is a cruel world, and it appears to get worse when it comes to the mentally challenged. I am thankful there are others who have righteous hearts with love, common sense, and discernment, capable of seeing this mother who loves her son enough to fight for his life, since he too is a victim, and prison is not what he needs to get the support and help he and his family need. I would love to know what you would do if you walked in this mother's shoes for 17 or 18 years and Brendan were your son. I haven't read all the comments. However, the ones that I read, I don't recall anyone stating that Brendan should roam free. The comments I read are people who are compassionate, not hateful and bitter, and understand that Brendan needs professional support from experts who understand his medical condition and are willing to provide the care that he needs. Again, that will be found, that will not, and I've said not be found in incarceration in the prison complex in which you readily advocate. So that's my response to her. And I won't read my initial comment, but I'm very passionate about this situation because, like I said, it touches close to home because the California court system tried to railroad my son. However, I stepped in and I got the charges dropped. He's now 42, but he was 14 when he was stricken with a rare bone cancer. And these children don't ask for these behaviors or these conditions to develop in them. So now I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to allow Minister Shaw to put his spin on everything that I've said, and I'm going to listen now because he's the PhD. He's been in this business for longer than I have.
Well,
And thank you.
first of all, thank you for doing this show again and following up on this, and the work that you're doing to help this young man should not go unnoticed. And your efforts be the motivation because you had a child that have gone through the same types of things in different ways, or just the kindness of your heart. I just am reminded that the scriptures tell us, as you do or treat the least of these, is the same way you've treated me, basically, is what it says. And so we have to understand that everybody ain't on top of their game. Everybody don't respond to situations the same. And if God has blessed you with a sound mind and the ability to think rationally, you should be thankful and not accusatory or, trying to condemn other people because, if it wasn't for God, there go you and me. So, so again, I thank you for all that you do, the task force work, everything that you do. And, but I want to say this, the system has not just failed this young man. The system has failed us all. Being law enforcement with uh, uh, the brother who died, what's the name? Floyd, brother
George
Floyd,
Floyd.
George Floyd. The system failed him. The system has been intact for so long that a man can murder a man in front of people with phones recording the incident. And not only does he do it, but then the people who were with him stood by because the system allowed them to do that. And, and then I'll even watch the film and, sometimes things are edited or whatever, but I watch what is supposed to be first responders or paramedics come up and don't even check a pulse. So this is a systemic thing. I can't necessarily say that would happen if it was of another race, that somebody wouldn't have checked the pulse or somebody wouldn't have got up off his neck, or his co-workers wouldn't have said, that's enough. I think that when what we're looking at is systemic, be it that situation, be it this young man who was 17 years old. You have an aide that doesn't know how to handle an autistic kid. People who are sane. I've seen videos of young people attack their teacher in school, and they didn't even have autism.
True.
Behind taking their phone or their game or whatever it is. And the reason that they walk in with these games, because the system that they use to help these young people with mental challenges is no good, ineffective, and so you give them something that occupies its time so that they can get paid and get through the day because they know they don't have the skill to help them. And so we're facing this all across the board. Our
Yes.
individual people have the ability to help. Some do, some don't. The system doesn't tell an aide working with autistic people that you don't snatch or take a game from a guy that's autistic who, without developing rapport, without getting some type of system in where you seem safe to the individual so that he will give his toy up. You know, this is a Nintendo toy that this, I think, happened behind. That's a child.
Mm-hmm.
So the system we have has to do better. We have to, I'm going to tell you a story. Me and my sister owned residential care probation facilities, 24-hour care. And we had a young man in there who defied all authority. He hated who was in charge, administrators, principals. He hated them all. And one day, I took him into the room and shut the door. And me and him was in there for a couple of hours. And the problem was his mother was a deaf mute that somebody had hooked on crack cocaine. And she became a street worker, and the people that she serviced would park near the school where he went, and all the little kids would tease him, talking about, look at your mama out there, and she do this and she do that, and the boy would fight.
Mm-hmm.
And we went through all of this, and he's saying things like, I hate you all. If I had a gun, I'd shoot you all dead. He's saying those type of words. And I said, well, before you do that, let me apologize to you, because no adult in your environment, administrator, teacher, whatever, realized that all you were doing was trying to protect your mother. And that boy broke down and cried. It felt like it was hours. But when he came out of it, he was a different person because somebody acknowledged his real problem. Now, how come
Yes.
all the time that he was going through therapy and they were trying to put him on drugs, and by the way, some of these real smart kids won't take those drugs. But while he was going through all of that, nobody just realized that he was just defending his mother. Now, how did I know? Because we grew up in an era when we were in elementary school and things like that. If somebody said something about your mama, it was a fight.
Yes, you're right.
But then we came with all of this therapy and all of these things. And everybody kept making this kid wrong for trying to protect his mother. How did I know to do that? And people in the field don't know to do that. How do I know that if I was working with that same kid, I would try to work with him? I might sit down and try to play a game with him. So he's used to giving me the game, and then I give it back and give it back game, develop a rapport, do some things like that. Have him give me the game, I give it back to him. Have me give him the game, give me the game, I give it back to him. He learned to trust that he can give it to me. Why aren't we
Right.
doing things like that instead of just taking something? Because you mentioned that he has developed, what did you say he had? Neuro developmental problem with autism spectrum. That's what.
Spectrum. Mm-hmm.
Well, spectrums generally kind of indicate that you got a wide range of things that come with whatever that is. So when you
Right.
have behavioral problems, it can vary. All of this is supposed to be known by the mental health people who
Absolutely.
work with courts, and to tell them this kid is not responsible, especially when he's been on drugs that have side effects that can cause violence and suicide and homicide.
Yes.
And so I just want to know why this is even in court. Now, should there be some type of punishment? Should there be some system? Maybe that needs to be thought through, and they come up with a way to handle people like him. Because he still has to, if he's going to be in society, learn consequences. But to threaten to put a kid in jail for 30 years, when we got people who
Ridiculous.
haven't done that much time for murder in this,
Right.
and we know he's autistic,
Mm-hmm.
this is a sad state of affair. And I'm going to just throw something out. We're going to use it at another topic. I was reading just Friday where Canada, certain places in UK are talking about making it legal for the people who are mentally challenged to decide that they uh, they have a right to commit suicide or
Hmm.
have euthanasia. This goes back to the time of Hitler when they basically came up with people unworthy of life, and then they said that you would do them a favor by killing them because they couldn't express that they didn't want to live anymore. See, this is how we start with a little thing, and then it ended up with the extermination of 6 million Jews, I think 12 million people. By the time it was over, those unworthy of life became those that we don't like.
Right.
So we have to be very careful that we don't vote for our comfort and give up our rights and freedom. See, I remember when social media, and I'm not supporting or endorsing anything, but I remember how people applauded when they shut Donald Trump down on social media. And now look at, I know Riza Islam, yourself, myself, different people, they shut us down if we say something that they don't agree with. They actually shut down a Surgeon General in Florida, a black guy, because he told people not to take the COVID shot. See? But what made them know more than the Surgeon General? You see? And so what we're looking at now, we think we're looking at freedoms. We get attached to all these social media things, and they can be benefits and they can do all that. But we got to be careful when we love our comfort more than our freedom. You know, and I know we don't have a long time today, but you are responsible for that because you created the passion in me about that young man. And I mean, I come across so many things that are unjust and stuff. It goes in the pile, but you created the interest. You had me looking at the video. I got curious, started looking, and now I'm an advocate for that young man, just like you are. You know, and I want to see things. And if it's something I need to do, or his lawyers, if his mother, you know, I'll send a letter from the NAACP or whatever to support this young man because they're going to have to figure out better ways. And especially when it comes to Black people, because you can't see this as a 17-year-old kid with autism. All you see is he's 6'6", maybe 270, and he's Black.
Yep,
And that's,
that's
you
what they
know,
see.
and
I'm going to share a picture of him while you're speaking so they can see what we're talking about.
And I,
You see there?
I remember in the old days, they used to say, I'm gonna use a clean version. They would say,
Mm-hmm.
how shall I treat these Negroes? And they say, well, your Negroes, treat them the way you want to. See, and you might hear that in the domino conversation now. But
Mm-hmm.
back then, that's the power and the dominance that they had over Black. So you do them as you want to do them. And this should be based on a system of justice and human rights and civil rights. So, you know, with that, you know, I know I dominated a lot of time on that, but
But
I
I
think
wanted you to because I want that perspective from you because you have a greater perspective on this because of what you represent and who you represent. And I'm glad you brought in the NAACP because this is something that they should be all over. Where is Al Sharpton now? Where is Ben Crump now? Where are those who jump out after everything? Maybe they're not here because they don't think it's money here. But
all
these are people's lives. This is a young, look at this boy. He's a boy. He has this statue. And for people to go around here calling him the hulking student, that's disgusting and that's disgraceful to me. And I'm so passionate about this because this could be my son that I had to fight for the injustice system in California when they tried to put some bogus charges on him. And I got those charges dropped because I've worked in the mental health field. I have a background in social work. I have a bachelor's in social work. I've been dealing with this stuff since my son was 14 years old. I have had to go to 2 battles for him in the court system in California where we live and where my kids were born and raised. So it's not just here in Florida, it's all over. And like you said, Fred, it's systemic. This mental health system is broken. The public educational system is broken, and it's all about the money. This He's a victim. Look at him. He's a boy, and his mental capacity is not even within his age, I'm sure. And I'm not, I'm a social, I have a social work background. I'm not a clinical psychologist. However, I have done studies in this field because I have a bachelor's degree in it. And it's no way on God's earth this boy should be tried because he doesn't even have the mental capacity of an 18-year-old under the medical conditions based on everything I've read. And I've never met him in person. And I took this to heart. I literally saw my own son in the plight that I have gone through just recently in the summer of 2023. In the not summer, the winter, I should say, the 2023, February of 2023, this year, with my own son, California, trumping up some bogus charges against him when he shouldn't have even been in the court system, period. And when my son is Black as well, so I know this stuff is racial as well. And I'm not afraid to say it because I believe in this right here. Speak up and speak out. And I'll show my cup when I take this boy off the screen. But it is so sad because my son being a young Black man now at 42, being stricken with cancer at 14, a rare bone cancer where he's gone through great depressions and drug addiction because it was difficult for him to cope with it, being academically very smart, being athletically very smart, and he's not he I mean, my son, I could say, was a brilliant young man, still is. However, I'm his conservator because of the challenges he's faced over the years. And a lot of it has to do with these psychotropic drugs and what they do to you. And just look at the commercials on TV based on what they say about the drugs when they present them to you. So I'm not saying anything, but it's all about the money. Big pharma, it's big money in drugs. And to give these people all these drugs, have them walking around like zombies, and saying what I've seen with my own eyes because of my son, being going down to Skid Row, seeing all these people down there because many of them have been ruined because they've been drugged out rather than talk to, like you said, you talked to that young boy, and he had these issues with them belittling his mother, degrading his mother. You have to get to the root cause of what's going on with people. And a lot of these people have no compassion. They don't have any compassion at all. And that's what's so sad when you have no compassion for other people, when you haven't walked in their shoes. And some people don't even have until it hits close to home. Let's put it that way. And I'm going to take his picture down now. I just wanted people to see his statue. And a lot of this, from what I have read, has to do with drugs. These drugs they give you, they can cause you to have these spurts in growth and so forth, based on what I read.
They can cause violent outbreaks in themselves.
Yes,
They can cause
yes.
psychotic breaks. But I want to address something. I went to the National Action Network convention a few years ago, and they had CNN, Van Jones. They had the national president of uh, the National Organization of Negro Women. They had some human rights group. It looked like they were Arabic or something. They had Al Sharpton was moderating. They were talking about, and there was a couple of more people. Oh, the Urban League, the president nationwide of the Urban League were all sitting at the table, and they were talking about protecting kids and so forth. And I dropped on them the same type of information I did at the beginning of the show. So how do we say we're protecting kids? We got to stand with the kids when we're letting them be drugged and with psychotropic drugs. They're doing electroshock and things like this. And Al Sharpton said, anybody want to take that? And Van Jones was very honest. He said, sometimes you know things we don't. Because nobody there had an answer. Then Sharpton, Reverend Al Sharpton, said, this is Reverend Fred Shaw. He's a member out of Los Angeles, the National Action Network, and he's right on this. The only problem is sometime when you're a national leader or you're a big leader, everything has to be done by you. And they don't realize that there's some of us that know what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And all he had to do was just bless me to continue doing what I was doing anyway.
Right.
Because there's nobody, Reverend Mosley is learning this stuff, and Reverend Bowie, and the ones out of Los Angeles, but 90% of all of the National Action Network, unless I bring it up, then a lot of people will think about it and they will agree. But it is not on anybody's agenda. And a lot of our educated people get paid through that system. Mm-hmm. They're working their job, They're sitting on the board at Kindred over here. They're doing all of that. And nobody would fight. It'd be just like when we used to have the teachers' aides. And the teachers' aides were paid for out of the money. And this is crazy. Out of the money that the school got because the kids' reading levels were too low. The
Mm-hmm.
problem with it, they never had a situation that says, now they would have paid that as long as the reading levels were low, they would pay that for the next 100 years. But they didn't say you got 5 to 7 years to turn it around, and then you only get the money if the kids are reading above
Mm-hmm.
their level. Now, what happens is, as the kids started learning to read, then all of those people who were teachers' aides and things like that, who needed that extra income, all of a sudden the kids still couldn't read because there was no incentive
Yes.
to help the kids' progress. There's no incentive for there to be effective measures. I'm going to touch a subject, and this is not from CCHR or the NAACP. This is me. We've been fighting cancer since I was a child, and I'm 68 years old. Every year we have the big thing to fight cancer.
Yes.
Like we ain't been fighting it all along. Or do we lose too much money
Mm-hmm.
cure cancer? Because over the years, there's been enough. You just say, let's say I was 8 years old. Over the last 60 years, you would find billions have been raised for cancer. How come we haven't fixed it?
Absolutely.
Well,
It's a money
Reverend
thing.
Shaw, they'll say, Reverend Shaw, it's hard to fix cancer. Really? But you can clone sheep. Isn't cancer the multiplying of cells? Isn't cloning? So if you can clone, you gonna tell me you can't stop cancer? You can't manipulate like you doing to create that sheep or to put a
Absolutely.
human hair on the back of a rat, which I've seen.
And send a
So all
man
of
to the moon. They can send men to the moon, women, men. They can, I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's all about what whoever the powers that are in place, it's what they want. Because I cannot see, like you said, ever since I can remember, they've been, oh, we're looking for a cure for cancer and all this money. You're so absolutely right. It's all
them,
about the corruption within the system and the money. If you follow the money, you got the cause right there.
and I'm not saying, and I'm not against the pharmaceutical companies because they give us drugs that keep us alive when we have diabetes
Yes,
and things, and they keep us going.
right.
I'm saying they could do a better job with these side effects, especially now
Yes,
since we're going into the age of AI, quantum computers, where these things they can assist man and how you can
yes.
practice based on the proteins and all of that in your body and your structure. They can figure it out.
Yeah, they
But
can.
there's no incentive to figure out. And you get guys like Dr. Sadie, and he hasn't been the first and will not be the last. I know a doctor who, one of his good friends, was beaming. I found it. I broke the code. He told this doctor I know, I broke the code. He took the doctor through his steps because they were good friends on how he got there. And 3 weeks later, he was dead.
Wow.
Now, I
That
can't see
and
anybody
you
killed him.
wonder,
I
you
can't
wonder
say
why.
anybody killed him, but it didn't appear he died
Interesting.
of natural cause. Just like Dr. Sabi died, you know, you get guys in jail like Epstein, different ones. They all come up. missing, they all come up dead, you know.
Yep.
So
So
anyway,
true. It's so much going on, and it's so much corruption in our system and in our government. And that's something that only people like us putting information out, people doing their due diligence reading, using your critical thinking skills, using that God-given sound mind, using the fact that you don't mind doing this, speaking up, speaking out, even though they say we have freedom of speech. It all depends on what kind of speech you put out. And this says speak up. It depends on what you put out there because I know they've taken some of my information off of YouTube. It's like we are a bunch of stupid idiots and we don't have the capability to read for ourselves, to discern for ourselves, to think for ourselves, and they want to keep brainwashing. And they, that I'm talking about, the powers that shouldn't be, they want to keep programming and brainwashing. And a lot of us fall prey to it because we're too lazy to do our own due diligence. We're too lazy sometimes to use our own brain, those critical thinking skills that God has given us. And a lot of it has to do with this. You look at this, it's a lack of self-love, a lack of love for one another. And it's so sad that we live in a society like that. And that's why we'll be talking about the upcoming election the closer it gets, because it's pathetic how all so many of us fall on this Democratic bandwagon. And what do they do for us as Black people, particularly us? Oh, we love that Democratic Party. I got out of it when I was in my 30s. I became an independent. And it's so sad because we're hung up on it. And what have they done to us? Look at what Biden is doing. He's giving all this money to these illegal migrants. And there are Black people over in Chicago. They are fighting, and I don't blame them. I'm so happy that they are fighting for their rights. They are citizens. It's their tax dollars, and they're taking all this money, Biden administration, because it starts at the top. Look at New York. As soon as Mayor Adams started to speak, and all of a sudden, oh, he's done some devastating things that have gotten him in trouble. But prior to that, is when he didn't rock the Democratic boat, oh, he was fine. But all of a sudden, he's rocked that Democratic boat, and now they're looking at him. The same with these entertainers. Oh, they were in that fattening pen, getting fat and thinking they're getting rich. And the folks that were uh, causing them to be published and getting all this money and putting all this filth out there. Oh, they were fine then, but now, hey, they got too big for their britches, I guess. So now the hogs are coming home and they're being slaughtered now. P. Diddy, as well, it started with, I guess, Bill Cosby and R. Kelly, and now P. Diddy, Jamie Foxx. And look at what's happening with them. It's a lack of love. And and this is for everybody, not just Black people. We're such a divided country because it's a lack of love, a lack of peace and harmony within the world, the America, and I'm speaking of the whole world because it's across the world. So we need more of that. So I'm thankful to God that I have this platform. And a lot of us, please, I'm Louise Hicks. This is my YouTube channel, which all this will be uploaded. AIMED, AIMED, the number 2 Purpose Radio. Share this video. Get on track of being able to live your best life. Love yourself. Love others. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Share videos like this. Stop following a lot of the nonsense that we are following out here, the NS and the BS, because that's what a lot of us follow. And I saw this teacher and I did a video on that. So watch that on my YouTube channel. A young 22-year-old ballet teacher who was so fed up until she put out a video about these parents who are allowing their children to listen to somebody I had never heard of, Pound Town or Town Pound or something like that. I had never heard of them, some rapper. And I looked at it on YouTube and I said, that's a disgrace for any parent to allow their 5-year-old to be twerking and watching something like that, raunchy stuff. And it took a 22-year-old. She's educating some of these parents who are ready to beat up on the teacher, I guess. And we got to stop this inappropriate behavior. How are we going to help our children? Here's a woman out here fighting for a child that has uh, this autism spectrum, and we don't know what level of severity he is. However, he needs help. And these parents are raising children to be out here doing all of this inappropriate at 5 and 4 and 3 and 2. It's sad. And it's so much stuck on stupid and ignorance. And wait, and if that child grows up and he decides or she decides, I'm going to beat you up and I'm going to delete you out of the world, because that has happened where these kids killing their parents. But look what you raised. So you have to take accountability and responsibility for it. So I thank you for coming in today. And I'm going to continue to follow Brendan's case. And I'm doing some things, like I said, but I'm not going to disclose anything that I'm doing yet. I'm hoping that I'm helping in whatever capacity that I can. And I thank you for jumping on the bandwagon to help, because this is the type of bandwagon we need to be jumping on, because we know the public school system is broken, the mental health system, prison system is broken, the medical system is broken, our society is broken, the politicians are corrupt, and it's just we're living in a crazy world. So with that said, we're going to close the show because I know you have something else you got to do. And I just thank all the supporters, and I thank you for coming in. I have a special guest coming in. Let me say this real quick. I have a special guest coming in Sunday, and we're going to have a great time. We're going to talk about 4 stages of creativity, know-how in order to level up for 2024. So you don't want to miss that. It's going to be at 12 noon Central Time, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and 11 o'clock Pacific Time. And I'm going to have my special guest will be Sis Cheryl, and she is going to be awesome. I can't wait to have this talk with her about her consulting firm, which is CPR, and we'll talk about what CPR stands for when she comes on the show. But we'll be talking about 4 stages of creativity, know-how in order to level up for 2024. And I'm looking forward to her coming on the show. This Cheryl, she's out of New Jersey, and I can't wait. Very dynamic person, and you get to know who she is, and be sure and tune in at those times I mentioned next Sunday, 11 o'clock Pacific, 12 o'clock Central, and 1 o'clock Eastern Time. And we'll be talking with Sister Cheryl. So thank you for coming in, and we're going to close the show for tonight. And I'm wishing Brendan's and his family much love, which is what we need. And I'm praying that he will get the support that he deserves, which is not prison by any means. And he shouldn't even be there. He shouldn't even be tried as an adult. Because we do know, like you mentioned earlier, there are so many people that have done murdered mass people, and they don't get 30 years in prison. And I'm going to do some research as well so we can talk about it on our panel discussion when we meet on the 17th of this month. We're going to talk some more about this case, and I'm going to do some research about the DA over there and that Flagler and all of that. So any final thoughts you want to say real quick, and then I'm going to say good night to everybody.
Yeah, I just want to say, if anybody want to know where I get my information, contacts cchrint.org, cchrint.org. If you want to contact me personally, fshawjr@yahoo.com, fshawjr@yahoo.com. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm actually 1 minute from going on another show. So I'll
All
talk to you.
right.
All right.
Have
Bye-bye.
fun. Enjoy the other show. Bye-bye. And everybody,
Bye-bye.
remember, your power lies within you. Let it loose, because your destiny is your command. This is Louise Hicks saying good night. And go to my YouTube channel and aimed AIMED, the #2 Purpose Radio. And thank you all for joining, and thank Minister Shaw. He has another show he's going to jump on right now. And again, thanks for your support and all your love. And remember, we all need more of this love. Good night. Good day, wherever you are around the world watching this. Louise Hicks of Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour. Share this video. Go to my YouTube channel, in which when you see this, you should be on my YouTube channel. Just subscribe. Hit that subscribe button because we have more content and we need this type of content because we need to elevate ourselves to a higher level of consciousness so that we can bring about more peace, harmony, and love in the world. Thank you all again. And remember, your power lies within you. Let it loose because your destiny is your command. And see you next week. Thank you so much. Love you much too. Bye bye.